Can everyone be seated, please? And
We're not
we'll
doing
get a little
18.
bit of quiet for the next
Because they're all
10, 15
off
minutes.
somewhere.
Everyone just take a seat.
Rion, smile.
Right, good evening, everyone. For people that don't know me, this is the first time back here. I'm also doing on YouTube a segment called Chubba TV, where we do interviews with all different Australian football people that play the game at the highest level, so you can catch up on YouTube at any time. And I called my good mate Robbie Slater to join us tonight, and without hesitation he did come tonight, and I think that deserves a big round of applause.
That's bullshit. I tried to resist in every possible way, but I was threatened.
Alright, for people that don't know Robbie Slater, he's probably one of the most iconic people in our game. He's not only been inducted in the Hall of Fame in 2005, he was the first player ever, Australian player, to score in the English Premier League. He was the first Australian outfield player to win an EPL Premier League medal with Blackburn Rovers. Incredible. And he's one of the most outspoken voices in our game now through the media. That's Robbie Slater. Good evening, Robbie. Robbie, we've got a lot of players here, a lot of kids that want to be you. And they desire and they dream of one day to be where you were. For you, it all started back with Revesby Workers, back in grassroots football, working yourself up, playing in the old National Soccer League with Sydney, Croatia. Tell us a little bit about that. You were 17 years old. How hard was that to, as a 17-year-old, tell these kids to break into the old National Soccer League, which is equivalent to the A-League now, which I reckon was even better than the A-League now, with some of the quality of players that were around, and you were a 17-year-old young kid to break through to first grade?
Yeah, thanks, Chubba, for that very kind introduction. And no, it's all right. Like, they're having a chat at the back. They're probably saying, "Who is that bloke?" Great to be joined by the captains of the 13s, 14s, 15s, and 16s. We got Oscar, Saxon, Rion, and James. And round of applause. And I don't know why they look so nervous, and they definitely don't want to look like me. And you don't. And who's this talker? Oh, the 18s. Sorry, what was... Oliver. Oliver's he's in charge of the youngsters. But that's the future, right there, right in front of you. And they've got their future in front of them. And it's a wonderful place to be. I was there at one stage, a long time ago. And I had dreams. I think when you're young, you don't really know. You know there's a dream. You want to be a footballer. Okay, how do you get there? How do you get there today is difficult. Back in my day, it was highly unlikely. I grew up in the southwestern suburbs of Sydney, the Bankstown area, Picnic Point. It was the heart of Bulldog territory, the Berries in the day, rugby league territory. It's where Thorpe was from, the War Twins, who I grew up with and played soccer with. And they were frustratingly good at every sport. But I think they chose the right path. They're friends till this day. And they were carpooling, very, very important partners at the carpooling with the wars. But I refer to Johnny Warren and his book, and excuse it, you probably couldn't write a book with that title anymore. Sheila's, Vogs and Poofters. That's what you were in where I grew up if you played soccer. And that was the reality of it. But I was, English parents, as I already said tonight, and I grew up watching Liverpool. I remember getting up in the middle of the night with my whole family and watching the FA Cup finals, and they were the team back in the day. They sort of come back to maybe that level, but back then it was Liverpool that won everything. European Cups, FA Cups, wonderful players, Kenny Dalglish, Graham Souness, who I would later be coached and managed by, luckily. But to sit in front of the screen, yeah, sorry about that. To sit in front of the screen back then and dream, I used to kick the ball in the backyard, that's what you did in those days. we didn't have highly qualified coaches that don't give you enough minutes like you do. And I'm only joking. Coaches, you've got to be nice to your coaches. So I dreamed in the backyard. I used to, if I believe my mum and dad, I used to be out there forever and kicking the ball. And yeah, so that was the beginning. I'm not going to go through the whole story because it's very long, but you know, I never made rep teams. I meant that when I said it. Believe it or not, it was pretty political in the Bankstown area. And I had red hair. I was pretty ugly as a kid, let's be brutally honest. Actually, people actually ask me, they go, how come you became a footballer? I said, well, the girls didn't want to go out with me. So that helped my football, but yeah, anyone can do it. I'm living proof, I believe. You've got to have a bit of luck, but you've got to want it. You've got to believe, I said to you guys, you've got to believe in yourself, whatever level you're going to get to, but you know, I'm proof that I came from somewhere where I wasn't supposed to do what I did. But and I used to get knocked down. I remember my mum and dad went to because I went to Auburn, that's when I was with the War Twins, and it was a night down south where everyone was in the hotel, and the coaches were sitting around and they were going through the players one by one, and they talked about this player, and yeah, he's got a chance, he's got a chance. And my mum told me years later that there was 3 coaches, and she asked them, what about Robbie? Do you think, oh no, he's got no chance. So that you know, I had that. I never made rec teams. I remember my dad was my greatest supporter. Never said a word, never criticised anyone, but he'd drive me to the trials and I'd be the one who missed out. And driving home, he'd always say, it's all right, you'll get the next one. And well, the next one I never did, but I kept going. And I kept going, and I think those knockbacks grew in something in me, which wasn't a conscious thought that I'm going to show them. I'm going to show them. Maybe I'm not the best yet, but I'll go in the backyard again. I'll run up the hills. I used to do the sand dunes in Cornell. And this wasn't at your age, but this is a little bit later. So yeah, I guess I believed in myself. And that's what you've got to have. And you know, that's a life lesson. It doesn't matter. Not everyone's going to be a footballer. You know, and to believe in yourself along your journey that your mum and dad are helping you with, because they do, and you'll realise when you're older, you know what, mum and dad were probably right. Because there's 2 people you can treat the worst in the world and they will always love you, and that's your mum and dad. And you realise that as you get older, and it's a great thing that you're doing. It's a great thing you're part of your team. It's a great thing you're learning things, and yeah. But for me, I feel very lucky. I'm not one of those. There's a lot of ex-players seriously are bitter with the game, and not bitter in a way like they think the game owes them something. The game doesn't owe you anything. I owe the game everything. I'm still sitting here talking about it all these years later. I owe the game everything. It never owes you. Jeez, we'll be here till midnight.
You've played at some of the biggest names in football in the world. Diego Maradona, Eric Cantona. So it's just an achievement to yourself, like you said, from where you came from, to be able to go and even play against these people and do what you've done. Is there a little bit, you've done everything in your career. Now you see the Socceroos, we qualified for the World Cup, and it's just like a must. It's probably the only thing you haven't done is qualify for the World Cup. Is that a little bit of a regret when you see, like now the Socceroos, we qualified for the World Cup, we're part of Asia? Is that something you always regret? I know we had that famous game you played in 1997, MCG, Iran, the 2-2 draw, where we were so close. You probably don't want me to talk about it, but that's probably as close as it came to a World Cup.
Listen, if you're going to lose, you may as well make it memorable. Huh? Everyone remembers it. They remember where they were. And yeah, but look, life's far, as you get older, you realise that life's far too short to regret, to be bitter about things. And what's in the rear vision mirror, you cannot change. It doesn't matter. So why eat yourself up about it? You know. And of course, you look back and you think, yeah, I could have gone to France, and played in that World Cup where I'd spent 5 years with Lens in the north of France, some of the best times of my life and some of the best football I ever played. That's when I played that game against Maradona in '93. I was at the French club, and so, yeah, would have loved to have played in the World Cup. But, you know, we didn't make it for 32 years. I was partly responsible for that. And, but no, I was lucky. I played against great players, with great players, you know, the Blackburn Rovers side, Shearer and Sutton, beating, you know, United obviously to the title that season is obviously special. But it's funny, on 2GB a few weeks ago, someone asked me what was my greatest success. And I had to think about it, and he said, was it winning the Premier League, James, with Blackburn Rovers? And I said, oh, was it the Socceroos, Rion, you know, Argentina, or was it, you know, playing for West Ham and your idols like Kenny Dalglish? And I said, actually, they're pretty good, all those memories. But I said, no, my greatest success is not really that. My greatest success, Chubba, is I've got 2 ex-wives. I've had 2 divorces and I have not paid a lawyer. That's my greatest success in life. Never had any lawyers. But there's been a price to pay for that, because only a few weeks ago I walked into my local coffee shop where I go in the morning, and there they are, 2 ex-wives, Samara and Natalie, French and Indonesian. And I looked at them and they looked and they were giggling, and I thought, oh, yeah, he's probably wondering what, have you got more? Anyway, I said good morning. I'm good friends with both of them. We've got 4 kids, 2 to each. And that's the greatest success in my life. But, you know, it did cut a bit deep when they left and said goodbye, and then about half an hour later I went to pay the bill, and he goes, it's $57. I said, I had a coffee. Oh, the 2 ladies that were sitting there said they paid for yours. Oh, that'd be all right. But, yeah, look, Chubba, we could, yeah, I feel very privileged, like I said. Yes, I worked hard. Did I make mistakes? Of course I did. I still look back and there's things that, you know, if you'd done that, that would have been better, but, you know, mate, what a ride. And you can't change what happened, so, you know, I'm worried about it. I feel very privileged to sit in front of people like you, magnificent children like this, and look at them. And I hope that they have big dreams, and I hope, whether that be football or whatever you do, that your dreams will come true. And I'll tell you, if you believe in yourself enough, something will. I don't know about Jude and Gabriel, by the way. I might exclude those 2.
I think you've been a little bit modest, because I think most of this generation would know Steven Gerrard, icon of Liverpool Football Club, won every medal in the world, never won the English Premier League. Yet this man here next to us, from, you know, Bankstown, Reesby Workers, an Australian, has gone to the English Premier League, not only succeeded in it, won the English Premier League. That's just incredible. Like, when you sit back and think about that, it just will blow your mind, because not many people will ever achieve that. And someone like Robbie Slater's done that. And if you look now in the modern day football, you would look at Ange Postecoglou, what he's done. Incredible coaching career, and now won the Europa League, is just incredible. So, you know, people like yourself, Ange Postecoglou, and you're a pioneer. You've put Australian football on the map, and we'll always be proud of that, and that's just an incredible achievement, and I think it deserves a big round of applause before we start talking to the kids. Which one of you lucky guys wants to come up first? Yeah, we'll pass it to you. James, you go first.
Yeah, go James, yeah,
What was it like playing in the Premier League?
Was that it? Sorry, James. When I think back seriously, and I worked on the Premier League with Fox Sports until I went to Optus for a long time, and I still report on it. Sometimes I look at the highlights and I look at it seriously, James. Now that I'm older, and I look and I go, shit, did I really play in that? So, yeah, at the time, I did realise I was living my dream. My first ever game in England, when I left France and I was going to re-sign, and I nearly went to Monaco, where Arsene Wenger was the coach, but I decided to go to Blackburn Rovers, and my first game in England was at Wembley in the Community Shield. So we were playing Manchester United, and I remember getting to Wembley, and I'm thinking, wow, I used to watch this on the TV when I was a kid, in the middle of the night. And this is where in '66, Bobby Moore and that England team won their, unfortunately, only World Cup. I don't think they'll ever win another one. And I walked out, and my mum and dad, who were my biggest supporters, and I could see them in the stand, and we lined up. They sang "God Save the Queen," and I met the Queen, and I thought it was really pinchy stuff, sort of. So, then the season kicked off the next week, and I appreciated all the time I was there. So it was absolutely fantastic. It was tough because I was the first Aussie with Bozza, and they didn't think we played football. So why are you here? They said, "Oh, you play those funny games. That one where when you miss, you still get a point." I said, "Yeah, well, this is that game." And but it was great. It's a good question, James, and I'm really happy I did. Rion, you're next.
How did it feel when you got your first professional contract? And how did your parents feel?
That's a really good one. Frank Arrock, remember him? He was the national coach as well, and my first club was St George. So although the NSL was part-time, players worked and they trained at night, I didn't, because I said I'm a professional. My mum said, "No, you have to get a job." I said, "No, I'm professional." So I didn't. She said, "You better get a job or you'll end up in jail. You better go overseas or you'll end up..." Anyway, so my first professional, my dad came with me, and we sat in front of Frank Arrock, and in those days, no one really had a, I was 17 from Bankstown, why would you need an agent? I was surprised to be there. Anyway, he started talking, Frank Arrock, and then he was talking away, and we want Robbie for this, and we want Robbie that, and then the sum of $2,000 was mentioned. And my heart sunk, this is true, my heart sunk, and I looked at my dad and I went, "We've got to give them $2,000? And my dad looked at me and said, "No, they're going to give you $2,000. And that's the experience of my first, it was a surprise. It was like, is this really happening? And I remember I signed for 3 years. The fee, the $2,000 was a signing on fee. It was $500 for a win, $250 for a draw and nothing for a loss. And my next year went up by 1,000, and my third year for 1,000. So, and look, I'm not going to say what year it was, but it was a lot. It was more money than you actually think it is today. But that's a great contract. So that was my first ever, and it was a surprise. Do you know what? I'll give you a tip. And I earned obviously more money when I went to the Premier League and I played in France. The money always, to me, was a surprise. I really mean that, because I loved the game. And when the salaries went up and I went to Anderlecht in Belgium and it didn't work out there, I remember going to Lawrence and my agent said, "You're going to get this signing on fee," and I went, "Really?" And every time it went up, it was a surprise because I just wanted to play. Saxon, are you thinking about your question? You look like you are.
So, how did your move to Blackburn come about? And how did your move to Blackburn come about? And did you go there believing you'd win the Premier League?
Another good question. I was supposed to go to Aston Villa with Bozza. I actually trialled before I signed with Blackburn the week before, with Ron Atkinson, who was the coach at the time, and Dwight York was there. And I had a really good week. And Blackburn wasn't even in the picture. My offers were from Sheffield Wednesday, Leeds, and Villa. I chose Villa. I had a meeting with my agent and Ron Atkinson, and I was going to sign. We just needed to work out the times. I went to the car park. My agent was a guy called David Hodgson, who had actually played for Liverpool, and he got a call in the car park, and he walked away and he picked up this mobile phone, which was about this big. He was holding it like that. Anyway, he come back after about 10 minutes, and I was quite irritated. I said, "Can we just go to the hotel?" And anyway, he said that was Kenny Dalglish. Now Kenny was my hero. I had posters of him on the wall, and he said he wants to sign you now, this afternoon. And I said, we just talked, I said, let's go. When Kenny calls, you go. I still can't, no one really understood Kenny, thick Scottish accent. And I remember when we drove up the road, we drove from Birmingham straight to Ewood Park in Blackburn, met Kenny at the front in the office, and I could still not tell you today what he said to me. But I just signed the paper. And I remember the agent was going, well, do you know? And I said, well, I don't care, I just want to sign with Kenny. and that was it, and that's how I arrived at Blackburn Rovers. So yeah, I was going to Villa, and I chose Blackburn, and lucky I did. And did I think, because you said, did I think I was going to win the Premier? A good friend of mine who wrote for a newspaper in Liverpool, we were actually in the hotel before we went to see Kenny Dalglish, and I said to him, I said, I've got Villa or Blackburn. He looked at me and said, don't even be stupid. Blackburn will win something this year. Villa won't. And that's why I signed.
What was the best side you played for with Graham Arnold?
Well, I would say, the Socceroos is an obvious one, but you've asked me what team, and I think that a fair answer is we only ever played together, and it was a great team. Sydney, Croatia. It was Sydney United today. Back in those days, it was Sydney, Croatia, and we had half of the national team: Wally Savoy, Graham Jennings, Žarko Ojakov. We had a really, really good team. So with Graham Arnold, it would be Sydney, Croatia, although we obviously played with the Socceroos, with Harry Kewell and Viduka and all those boys, but we were lucky to play with them, actually. Actually, Arnie had a good story. He was playing against Ajax, the famous club, and it was the kick-off of they built a new stadium, the arena, Ajax Amsterdam, the arena. And Pele was there for the kick-off to celebrate the thing, and he was playing with Nac Breda, and they went to do that. He was captain of Nac Breda, and there's Pele, obviously a legend, along with Maradona, long time considered the two best players of all time. There's a few other candidates now, but anyway, Arnie went out to do the toss with Danny Blind, who's a very famous player for Ajax, and the referee flipped. And Arnie had to call, and he called something, and he won the toss. And the referee turned to him, so there's 100,000 people in the Ajax arena, and Danny Blind, who's a legend, Dutch player, looks at Arnie, says, and the referee goes, well, what are you going to do? And he goes, I don't give a shit, I want to kick off with Pele. And that's Arnie. There's the one who steered us to a World Cup. Who's the last one? Oscar.
What would you say is the biggest difference between football in Australia and football in England?
Right, Oscar, we will now officially be here till tomorrow morning. You know what, I'll just be honest, because it's got me into a lot of trouble telling the truth, but it is the truth. We played the best game, but we played in the wrong country. And what I mean by that is football is by far the greatest. I've got a daughter, the eldest daughter, and I've got friends, and they live in Europe, and they never. And this is not. Well, watch Origin. I'll go and watch rugby league, little really AFL because I didn't grow up with it. But it's not about that. But my love is football, and I regret that I live in a country where people don't get it. So it's different. They live for it over there. You go to Portugal, you go to Spain, to England, to France, Norway, Finland, Switzerland, Asia, South America. Even in America now, the MLS is widely respected. And we find it hard because we kill ourselves, Oscar. Now, you guys don't understand it, but a lot in the room will. The game doesn't go forward in this country because the game is divided. It's because everyone doesn't like each other. It's just the way it's been since I was 17. And now it's worse. The football, not for you guys, not at your level, But football at a professional level is the worst position it's ever been. The APL divorced itself from the FA, which was stupid, and it was proved to be stupid. And, you know, the state federations don't like the APL. The APL fight with them, and the APL hate the FA. FA is starting a new competition. Don't listen to what they say. They're starting it at the same time as A-League. They're doing it to spite them. And it's, unless we unite, we can't win in this country because we're not number one already. So if we're divided, we don't have a chance. That doesn't mean you guys don't have a future. Of course you are. Your job is to change it, to be people that can change it. And that's the truth. But you're at a great club. You have the power in the future to help change that. But until the people who run the game, and this is not directed to this question, but until they realise and maybe stop thinking about themselves and their little corner for a while and unite, the game will grow again. We were in a pretty good spot 8 or 9 years ago. And the APL decided we can run it better, and well, it was proven that they couldn't. And you can't get anywhere divided. You've got to be united. And that's, you know what, you can relate that to everything. Your team, you know, if your team's divided, you're not going to be successful. Same for everyone. You've got to fight for each other. And that's what the game's got to do. I'm sorry about that answer, Oscar. But the game is great. You're in a good spot, and you're playing the best game in the world. And tell everyone to just get on with it.
All right, quick 3 questions, not to think, just one word answer. Best teammate you ever played with?
Can I have 2?
I'll give you 2.
Shearer and Letizia.
Shearer and Letizia. Wow. Most annoying teammate, like you said to
Gabriel. Without a doubt, Graham Arnold.
Best coach you played under, because you have played under Graham Souness and, like you said, Sir Kenny Dalglish.
Yeah, Harry Redknapp was great because he was so funny. One day he come in, we were playing Everton away and we lost 5-1. Anyway, it was 4-0 at half time. Anyway, we had a player sent off. John Moncur got sent off in the first half, and he called me over because I was playing right wing, tucked in him. I think the left side I'd started, but anyway, I ended up in the right. And the midfielder got said, he said, look, you tuck in, so we'll keep the 3 in the middle, so you've just got to help out in there and, you know, cover the loss of Johnny. And I go, yeah, okay, Gaffer. It was 1-0 when I went off, half time was 4-0. So I come back in and Harry's going off his brain, and he looked at me and he said, Robbie, he says, what was you doing out there? And I said, Harry, I said, you know, like, yeah, but I told you to tuck in, and I said, I told you to do it. And I said, yeah, well, you know, I was playing like 2 players out there because Johnny got sent off. And he said, yeah, you were both having a bloody nightmare. So that was Harry Redknapp. So, best coach, Kenny Dalglish.
Legend. Well, that concludes the Chubba TV segment and Robbie Slater. I think a big round of applause to our future players. Great question. And I just hope every player took something from tonight, because one of yous out there could be the next Robbie Slater. It doesn't matter where you start from or it's where you finish, and it's just got to take hard work, dedication, and really believe in it, and you could be the next Robbie Slater, or even better than Robbie Slater.
We certainly hope so. Just one tip that you've learned, don't get married twice and divorced twice. Just get married once and stay with them, right? And no, I'd like to really thank everyone. It's a pleasure to come. And yeah, I know, there's not going to be 3, so I can tell you, I'm carpooling on my own. But it's great to be here. It's great to meet such good kids. With the look in their eyes, I can see it. Dreams. You know, so much ahead for them, and yeah, you're there to help them. I can see wonderful people in the room, and you know, mum and dad's not always wrong. Okay, so change your attitude. Thanks, boys.
Thank you, and thank you everyone, and that's the end of this segment.